Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Steph Koza and welcome to the second video in my Marvel Cinematic Universe review series. That was a mouthful. Today we are on the second movie in the series chronologically, which is Iron Man 1. If you missed my first review of Captain America the First Avenger, feel free to check that out first if you want to. If you aren't aware, I am reviewing every single movie in the MCU until the release of Infinity War, just to get kind of hyped up and as a nice refresher for me and for you guys of what happened in all those like 10 years. So many years of movies. So today I'm talking about Iron Man, the very first Iron Man movie. The very first movie in the MCU to be released was this movie. This is what started it all. Just so you know, this review is going to have spoilers because I am assuming that at this point everyone has seen this movie and knows what happens. So just be warned, if for some reason you've never seen Iron Man, you should probably turn off this video and go watch it right now and then come back afterwards. So Iron Man 1 stars Robert Downey Jr. It's really weird to have to say that. You know, everyone knows. He's Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man, guys. Newsflash. This was directed by Jon Favreau, who also directed Iron Man 2 and is also in the movie as Happy. One of my favorite characters. I love Happy. Jon Favreau also directed Elf and more recently The Jungle Book. He's directing Young Sheldon. He was also a producer on Iron Man 3, on The Avengers Age of Ultron, and he was also in Spider-Man Homecoming as Happy once again. So he's very involved in the MCU and I love him. I love his character. I love that he's a director and he's really good at it, and I think he did such a great job with this movie and introducing us to the MCU, and I'm so happy that he was the one to do it. So Iron Man 1 is the ultimate origin story. It is what introduces us to Tony Stark and pretty much the entire universe of superheroes, even though it is just him for now. Like, we get a little teaser, at least at the end, when Nick Fury comes and is like, hey, I want to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative. At which point, everyone lost their fucking minds, myself included. I mean, when you look back at that and you think, this was the first movie. There were like not that many superhero movies out, at least good ones. It wasn't really like a big thing. The superhero movie scene hadn't like completely taken over yet. It was very subtle. It was mostly just like nerds that were into it. Like, it wasn't the whole world like it is now. And they were so brave and bold enough to say at the end of this movie, hey, Tony Stark isn't the only superhero out there. We're gonna do the Avengers eventually. We are gonna introduce it right now in the very first movie before we even know if people like it and are into it, because that is how confident we are. Like, way to go, Marvel. You knew. Like, when I rewatched this movie the other day, which was the first time I had actually sat down and watched Iron Man in a really long time, like actually paid attention to it, like it had been forever. And when I saw that after credits scene, and I was like, wow, they really knew exactly what they were doing from day one. That was so impressive to me and so exciting to me. And I felt like I was taken back to when I first saw this for the first time, and I was just like, oh, the Avengers, yeah. I was just so excited the first time I saw that, and it was, I love this movie. I think after watching this and having seen every other Marvel movie to date, this might be my favorite Marvel movie. I love Iron Man. He is my favorite superhero in the Marvel world. In Marvel, he is my favorite superhero. And I think this is the best origin story we've ever seen from any character. Because unlike pretty much every other Marvel superhero origin story movie, this one didn't rush anything. This shows you every step of the way. It shows Tony Stark being Tony Stark, not being Iron Man. It shows him figuring stuff out and building the Iron Man suit, but it also shows all of his errors and his fuck-ups and him like trying to build the suit and not being able to, or like trying out some new thing and like flying backwards and testing out the guns and shooting something and crashing on the floor. It just shows like every step of his like trial and error period, and it shows how long it took, and it shows his dedication, and it shows his character building, and it shows the way he interacts with people, and you really get to know Tony Stark before he becomes Iron Man, which I think is super important to know. I was watching this movie, and by the time we finally saw Iron Man, like Tony Stark in his Iron Man suit flying around being Iron Man, it was like an hour into the movie. Like, it took so long to even see Iron Man in the movie Iron Man, which I think is really good and important. Like, you should build up that anticipation. You should build up that origin before you get there. Like, it shouldn't be rushed. Like, I feel like every other movie, like Doctor Strange really comes to mind. Like, that movie was good, but it was really rushed. Like, we didn't really see him get to Doctor Strange. He was just like, well, here I am. I'm Doctor Strange. Hey, I just magically got here without any struggles at all. Aside from, like, crashing my car and almost dying. But, like, in Iron Man, we see everything. It feels almost slow, but not too slow. Like, the pacing in this movie is very, very well done, I think. I think it's done perfectly. The balance is amazing. We get a good balance of drama and everyday life and humor, and the humor in this movie didn't feel as forced and as slapstick as it does in later Marvel movies. I feel like ever since the Avengers, it's been a lot more slapstick and a lot more like, haha, we're gonna throw in this joke because it's funny and stupid and not because it makes sense. But in this movie, all the humor was like situational humor or just like very conversational, like this is how Tony Stark talks, like he's funny just in the way that he is, or like the way he talks to Pepper was always kind of funny, or the way he talks to Happy, and it was just like very sensical. It all made sense, it all fit. It didn't feel forced, it didn't feel too funny, it was just funny enough to make sense, you know? And I also like that we're introduced to a pretty fair amount of characters, but it doesn't feel overwhelming at all. Like, we get War Machine, we get Pepper Potts, we get Happy, we even get Nick Fury, I think Agent Coulson is in this one, and we also get the villain, Obadiah Stane, played by Jeff Bridges, who I also love because he's not like a stereotypical comic book villain with like weird superpowers or something. He's just a guy that worked with Tony and wanted to go a different route and disagreed with Tony business-wise and just kind of went off the rails. And that's a really realistic thing, and he was such a real character. And it made everything so much more intense because it was like they knew each other and they were almost friends, and he betrayed him. And then there's also obviously the terrorists, which are like the huge villain, and it's all just very like realistic villains. But what I also love is that the villain isn't like the main part of the story. Like, most people wouldn't even remember who the villain is in this movie because it's not really about that. It's about Iron Man and Tony Stark becoming Iron Man. Like, it's just an origin story. That's all it is. And it's so good and I love it so much. We also get introduced to Jarvis for the first time, which I don't know why I'm just so amazed that Jarvis became Vision. Like, it's the same guy. Like, I'm watching it now and I'm like, every time I hear Jarvis speak, all I think is Vision now. Like, I just picture Vision, and it's so crazy to me that like they hired this guy and they're like, we need you to play Jarvis, you're just gonna be like a voice, but also just so you know, in like 10 years you might also be playing some flying Vision guy. Is that cool? Is that cool with you? And he was just like, yeah, sign me up. And he did it. And it's so cool. And everything about this franchise is so cool. And I think this movie also just shows how freaking smart Tony Stark is. Like, every moment he's just like using his brain and figuring shit out and building an Iron Man suit with a box of scraps. He's a genius and I love it, and I love how well they showcase that and how well they portray that. They also portray his faults pretty well, but they don't make him seem like a total dick. He's like just dick enough to not be a total dick. And that's Iron Man, that's Tony Stark. I think it was super well done. One of the best origin stories I've ever seen. One of the best Marvel movies in the entire cinematic universe. I think I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5. Is that too high? I don't know. I really like this movie. I think it's a great setup for the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think it's a great movie. It's a great comic book movie. It has everything I wanted to have. 5 out of 5. That's it for my review. Let me know what you guys thought of Iron Man 1 in the comments below. If you missed my first review, I did Captain America the First Avenger. Feel free to check that out. My next review will be Iron Man 2, as it is the next in the chronological timeline, considering Iron Man 1. Oh, another reason I love Iron Man 1 is because the last scene when he's in the press conference and he's standing there and he's like trying to figure out what to say, and then he's like, fuck it. I'm just gonna tell the whole world that I am Iron Man. Credits. Just such a great moment. I remember seeing that in theaters and just being like, yeah, Iron Man. It was just such a cool moment. Such a good freaking movie. I love this movie so much. Anyways, yes, Iron Man 2 is next in the chronological timeline because at the end of Iron Man 1, he's in the press conference saying, I am Iron Man, and Iron Man 2 literally starts right in that moment when that happens. So they have to be right next to each other. They just have to. But thank you guys so much for watching this review, and I will see you in the next one, which is Iron Man 2. Bye!